Jungkook drops shocking truths about Jimin in a viral interview, but HYBE deletes it without warning what are they hiding and why now. He wasn't who you think he is, and if I disappear after this, you'll know why. The words, sharp and chilling, cut through the quiet hum of the studio. Jungkook's voice, low but resolute, echoed across the dark room as the cameras kept rolling. His gaze never wavered. It wasn't anger in his eyes, but something heavier, darker, regret or fear. The interviewer froze, fingers hovering above her notes. No one had expected this. Not on live air. Not from Jungkook. Outside the glass walls, the control room erupted in silent chaos. Technicians exchanging panicked glances. A producer mouthing, "Cut the feed. Too late." The clip was already streaming, already clipping its way across Twitter and YouTube before the end credits even rolled. Just 30 minutes before, Jungkook had stepped into the studio with a calm, almost mechanical grace. He wore black head to toe, his long coat trailing like smoke behind him. His face bore the careful neutrality of someone who'd rehearsed his silence for years. But now, with his confession unraveling on camera, it was clear he hadn't come to talk about his solo album. He'd come to break something. The camera lingered on him, capturing every nuance, the twitch of his jaw, the way his fingers gripped the chair's armrest, like he needed it to anchor himself. The confession wasn't planned, it wasn't polished, but it was real. "You all think Jimin is perfect," Jungkook said slowly. "But none of you were there. Not in the training room. Not when the doors were closed." He inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring, as though the memory itself was suffocating him. "In 2018, something happened," he continued. "Something none of us were allowed to talk about. We signed NDAs. We were told it was for the good of the group, for the fans, for him." The interviewer, to her credit, managed to whisper, "Are you saying Jimin?" Jungkook cut her off with a raised hand. "I'm saying HYBE covered it up." That was the moment everything changed. Within hours, the internet exploded. Jungkook Tells All trended in over 50 countries. Fan theories bloomed like wildfire. Was it about the sudden hiatus in 2018? The scrapped world tour dates? Or the mysterious hospitalization no one ever explained? But then HYBE deleted the footage. Completely. Not just from the official channel, but from every re-upload, every mirrored backup. Even TikTok clips disappeared. Accounts were suspended without notice. Whispers of blacklisting spread among journalists. Former HYBE interns posted vague tweets, only to delete them minutes later. The silence was louder than any denial. And yet, the memory lingered. Thousands had seen it. Transcripts circulated. Fans had memorized the words "digital ghosts." They called them traces of a truth someone desperately wanted to erase. Back in Seoul, Jungkook stood alone in his apartment, high above the city's blinking lights. His phone was off. The silence inside was deep, unnatural. He stared at the wall where, for years, his platinum records had hung. They were gone now, packed away. As if he was already preparing for an ending, he replayed the moment again, in his mind. Not the interview, but that night, October 17th, 2018. The hallway, the scream, the blood on the wall no one ever cleaned. The way Jimin's face looked afterward, blank, detached, like a ghost wearing his skin. He remembered what Jimin whispered to him that night as they waited for the staff to arrive. "If you say anything, we all fall." Jungkook had stayed silent for nearly 7 years, but something had broken inside him now. Maybe it was the nightmares. Maybe it was the voice of Taehyung, gone and silent since 2022, whose absence still echoed like a wound. Or maybe it was the photo. The one someone had slipped under his door 3 days ago. A photo that wasn't supposed to exist. One that showed the truth. Jimin, standing over someone. A shadow on his face. Blood on his hands. And a HYBE executive in the background, watching unblinking. Jungkook hadn't spoken to Jimin since 2021. Not after what happened in Busan. Not after Taehyung's sudden disappearance. But now, he had opened a door that couldn't be closed. In the building across the street, he noticed a red light blinking like a camera lens, watching. They knew, and he was no longer safe. "So, you're finally going to destroy everything we built?" The voice rang out before Jungkook could knock. It wasn't a question, it was a sentence. A bitter truth drawn straight from the edge of betrayal. The door swung open, revealing Yoongi standing barefoot, eyes bloodshot, wearing a hoodie that hung off him like defeat. The inside of his apartment smelled of incense and old tension, like too many secrets burned in too little air. Jungkook didn't answer. He stepped inside. It had been years since he last saw Yoongi in person. Texts were occasional, formal, sterile, the kind of messages you send when you want to pretend something is still intact. But now, under the dim, yellow kitchen light, there was no pretending left. Yoongi slammed the door shut behind them. "You said you'd never bring it up." That was before someone left the photo. Yoongi ran a hand through his hair, cursing under his breath. "It started then, fuck. They've been watching me," Jungkook said quietly. "Outside my apartment, same cars, same faces. I went to delete the photo, and it wouldn't delete. They embedded a tracker," Yoongi said, voice low. "HYBE's been doing it for years. You think they didn't keep tabs on you after Busan?" Jungkook's jaw clenched. "You were there that night." Yoongi looked away. "And you shouldn't have been." The words hit harder than a slap. Jungkook's fists curled at his sides. "So I was supposed to keep quiet while we all pretended Jimin didn't—" "Don't say his name in this house," Yoongi snapped, voice rising like a storm. A moment of charged silence fell between them. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. Then Yoongi sighed, sank into a chair like his legs couldn't hold the weight of what he carried anymore. "You think you're the only one with guilt? I live with that night every fucking day. But if you bring it up publicly again, if you leak anything else, you won't just ruin him. You'll take all of us down with you." "He already ruined us," Jungkook hissed. "Taehyung is gone. Namjoon won't return my calls. Jin left Korea. This group, this family died in 2018 and we've all been pretending ever since." Yoongi reached for the half-empty glass of soju on the table, but his hand trembled too hard to pick it up. "What happened to you, Hung?" Jungkook asked. "You used to fight for the truth." Yoongi looked up and for a moment Jungkook saw something raw in his eyes. "Truth doesn't survive in this business. Only stories do." The two stared at each other, the silence between them as loud as any scream. Then Jungkook pulled the photo from his pocket. He placed it on the table between them. Yoongi didn't look at it. "You know what happens next," Jungkook said. "I know," Yoongi murmured. "I just hoped it wouldn't be you." The first headline dropped that night. HYBE accused of erasing footage after Jungkook names names in viral interview. Suddenly, the air buzzed with speculation. Former trainees began speaking out anonymously. Forums lit up with stories that had been dismissed for years. Unpaid overtime, forced hospitalizations, psychological manipulation, and beneath it all, a name kept resurfacing. Park Jimin. There had always been whispers about Jimin. His sudden mood swings, the canceled interviews, the time he disappeared from the dorms for 3 days and reappeared with a fractured wrist and no explanation. Fans had rationalized everything, as fans do, but now they were asking, what had really happened in October 2018? Across the city, in a high-rise penthouse shielded behind tinted glass, Jimin watched the chaos unfold. He stood barefoot, silk robe hanging loosely, untouched wine glass on the table. The TV played muted news coverage, clip after clip of blurred images, grainy fan cams, old press photos now reanalyzed with forensic obsession. His phone vibrated again. Another death threat. He deleted it without reading. Then, with practiced calm, he opened the drawer in his bedroom, pulled out an old burner phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in 5 years. When the voice answered, it sounded breathless, cold, like someone startled awake from a nightmare. "Jimin," the voice rasped. "Why are you calling?" "I need to see you," Jimin said. Silence. Then, "You really think you deserve that? Please, Tae," he whispered. Just once. Taehyung hadn't been seen publicly in nearly 3 years. Fans speculated he had gone to Paris, or Argentina, or a monastery. No one knew, not even the members. But 2 hours after the call, Jungkook's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "If you want to know what really happened that night, come to Gyeongbokgung. Alone. Midnight." Attached was a grainy photo, Jimin and Taehyung. Standing together, Jungkook's blood turned to ice. The palace grounds were deserted, shadows long under the moonlight. Jungkook walked through the courtyard, heart pounding, the photo clutched in his jacket pocket like a ticking bomb. He found them near the old stone wall, cloaked in darkness. Jimin stood still, hands in his coat, while Taehyung leaned against the wall, face partially hidden by a scarf. No one spoke at first. Then, Jungkook broke the silence. "I thought you disappeared." Taehyung looked at him. His eyes were sunken, tired, older. "I did." Jimin stepped forward. "I didn't bring him here to fight. I brought him because you deserve the truth." "You mean now you think I deserve it?" Jungkook laughed, bitter. "After letting me tear myself apart over it for years?" Jimin's face didn't flinch. "I wasn't protecting myself. I was protecting you." "Don't bullshit, May. I'm serious." Taehyung looked away, jaw tightening. "We were all protecting each other. But HYBE was never protecting us. Not once." Jungkook stepped closer. "Then say it. Say what happened that night. Say it out loud." Jimin hesitated. The wind stirred. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Then finally, he whispered, "It wasn't an accident." Taehyung closed his eyes. Jungkook's world tilted. "You told us it was," he said. "I lied." Jungkook grabbed Jimin by the collar. "You killed someone." "I didn't mean to." "You left him there?" Jimin's face crumbled. "I couldn't save him. None of us could. And HYBE made sure no one ever would." Silence fell again, thick as smoke. Taehyung spoke, voice cracking. "We covered it up because they told us we'd go to jail, that our families would suffer, that our careers would be over." "They paid the family," Jimin added, his voice hoarse. "They rewrote the narrative, told the press he owed." Jungkook stumbled back, as if struck. "You're talking about Minwoo," he said. "The choreographer. He was 22, Jimin nodded. "And he knew something about the CEO, something that got him killed." "No," Jungkook whispered. "He didn't just die. He was murdered." Jimin nodded again. Jungkook couldn't breathe. "Why now?" he asked, voice breaking. "Why tell me now?" "Because someone's leaking," Taehyung said. "And it's not us." Jimin looked around, eyes narrowing. "We're not alone." From the rooftop above the courtyard, a lens retracted. A man in a black coat lowered the camera and made a call. "Yeah, all three are talking." "Pause." "No, we don't need legal. We need containment." Another pause. "Bring her in now." At HYBE headquarters, deep underground in a room with no name, a woman was handcuffed to a chair. Her face was bruised. Her lip bled. Her ID badge lay cracked on the floor. She stared at the mirror across from her and spat blood at it. "You can torture me all you want," she said. "The files are already out." From the darkness, a voice responded calmly. "Not if we kill the right people first." And somewhere far away, in a data server buried beneath Jeju Island, a program labeled Phoenix blinked to life, carrying the last living proof of what happened on October 17th, 2018. And Jungkook had only just begun to burn. "If you want this to stop, one of you has to die." The message wasn't handwritten. It was carved, burned into the wall of Jungkook's apartment. He hadn't seen it when he walked in. He noticed it only after the lights began to flicker. The electricity cut out 2 minutes later, plunging the high-rise into absolute darkness. He stood there, still gripping the doorknob, heart pounding, the scent of char and metal sharp in the air. Something was wrong, deeply, violently wrong. The message glowed faintly red, etched with something that still steamed. Not blood, not ink, heat, laser, acid. He reached for his phone with shaking hands. No signal. There was a low hum, like machinery powering up from the depths of the earth. Then a soft chime, metallic and rhythmic, echoed from the hallway outside. He backed away slowly. That sound... It was the same one they heard in 2018, before Minwoo died. The same sound they swore they'd never talk about again. But something had changed. This wasn't just about secrets anymore. Someone wanted him to feel the countdown. Wanted him to know this wasn't a game. The shadows moved. He turned, and standing behind him, silent, motionless, was Jimin. His face was ghostly pale, lips parted slightly, eyes glassy like he'd walked out of a nightmare. "They found me," Jimin whispered. "They know about Phoenix." Jungkook didn't even have time to respond. The windows exploded inward. 3 hours later, he woke in a hospital basement, not in a bed on the floor. His ears rang. His mouth tasted like dust and static. His head throbbed with pain, and there was a needle mark in his arm. He stumbled up, using a broken stool for balance. His vision blurred and sharpened in flashes. Somewhere nearby, someone was crying. It was Jimin. He was handcuffed to a chair. Blood matted his hair, and his wrists were already raw from struggling. But the worst thing, the thing Jungkook would never forget, was the look in Jimin's eyes. The look of a boy who had finally been caught by the monster he thought he'd outrun. And then the door creaked open. They walked in wearing suits, their faces blurred by transparent masks laced with silver veins. He recognized none of them and all of them. HYBE's deep-level operatives, ghosts in tailored Armani. One of them, taller than the rest, held a tablet. "You've activated Phoenix," the man said, his voice neutral, almost pleasant. "That was a mistake." Jungkook stood his ground. "It was never a mistake." The man looked mildly amused. "Do you even know what Phoenix is?" "Yes." The dead man's switch. The black archive. The man tilted his head. "Close, but not quite." Jimin groaned softly behind him. "Don't let him lie to you." Phoenix, the agent continued, was never about protecting the truth. It was built to control it. The words hung in the air like ash. "You were the face," the agent said to Jungkook. "Jimin was the heart, but Taehyung, he was the code, and now he's missing, which means we can't delete the rest of it without you. I don't know where he is." The agent's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps you need motivation." He turned the tablet toward Jungkook. A video played. Taehyung, bound, eyes swollen, gagged, blood on his temple. The agent looked at him with something like pity. "He's been our guest for 2 weeks. You thought he went dark voluntarily?" "No. He knew Phoenix would eventually wake. He tried to destroy it. Failed." Jungkook's rage ignited like fire under his skin. "What do you want?" The agent smiled. "You're going to finish what he started. You're going to erase the protocol. And if I don't?" The agent looked toward Jimin. "Then he's first." And slowly. Meanwhile, on the other side of Seoul, Yoongi sat in a basement studio lined with old analog equipment and whiskey bottles. The screens in front of him flickered with footage stolen from hidden HYBE servers' underground experiments, encrypted rehearsal data, facial mapping software attached to fan feedback models. He hadn't slept in 42 hours. He ran his fingers through his hair and muttered, "Fucking hell." Everything he had feared, everything Namjoon tried to warn him about was true. Phoenix wasn't just a kill switch. It was a machine of influence. An AI-based memory vault that had been collecting, distorting, and storing every interaction the group had, from private locker room conversations to therapy sessions, to voice training files and deleted confessionals. It even had fan simulations. HYBE hadn't just built stars. They had engineered gods. And now the gods were bleeding. He tapped into the feed from the hospital and saw Jungkook and Jimin barely alive, held hostage like they were old inventory past expiration. He initiated a trace. Encryption was military grade. But Yoongi had learned a thing or two from Namjoon before the leader disappeared into whatever bunker he now called home. After 10 minutes, the screen pinged. Location: Seocho District. Underneath the HYBE Medical Research Annex, Yoongi smiled bitterly. They were keeping the idols where they used to treat their anxiety. How poetic. The next 12 hours were blood. Yoongi made contact with Jin, who had left BTS to become a private intelligence consultant in Geneva. Jin didn't ask questions. He wired encrypted blueprints to Yoongi's phone and said, "If you don't hear from me again, tell Jungkook I was wrong. Wrong about everything." They had all underestimated the cost of silence. Yoongi broke into the annex using Jin's credentials. He wore a fake badge, carried a duffel bag with explosives, a hard drive, and a gun he never imagined he'd actually use. But he did. 2 guards fell before he reached the main corridor. Then he saw them. Jungkook, his face battered, shirt soaked in blood. Still standing. Still unbroken. Jimin barely conscious, but alive. Yoongi kicked down the door. Time collapsed. Bullets flew. The lights shattered. Smoke filled the air like a funeral. Yoongi screamed their names, and they ran. They didn't stop until dawn. They stole a van, drove east toward the sea, every mile between them and Seoul a wound that couldn't close. No one spoke, until finally on a cliff overlooking the water, Jimin turned to Jungkook. "You still think I'm the villain?" Jungkook stared out at the horizon, his face unreadable. "I think you were a victim, just like me." "And Taehyung?" "He's still in there," Yoongi said. "But not for long. That video wasn't a threat. It was a warning." Jungkook exhaled. Then, quietly, "Phoenix isn't done yet," Jimin frowned. "What do you mean?" Jungkook reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "Minwoo sent this to me a week before he died. I never knew what it was." He plugged it into Yoongi's laptop. The screen went black. Then a message appeared in white, simple text. "If you're reading this, they're already coming for you. But if you can find the original source code, you can end HYBE." Jimin blinked. "Minwoo knew?" Yoongi shook his head. "He built it." Silence fell again. Then the laptop chimed. An address appeared. Coordinates in the demilitarized zone. Yoongi looked at Jungkook. "That's where it ends." Jungkook shook his head. "No, that's where it begins." He stood, eyes burning with a fire they hadn't seen in him since the early days. He was no longer an idol, no longer the golden matinee. He was a weapon, and the war had finally started. Rain fell like needles against the windshield, carving silver streaks across the van's glass as it barreled down the empty road toward the most forbidden place on the peninsula, the border. The DMZ loomed ahead like a haunted scar, a place where war had paused but never ended, where ghosts walked more freely than men. Inside the van, the air was thick with unspoken truths. Jungkook sat in the passenger seat, staring ahead, jaw clenched so tight it looked like he was biting back a scream. Yoongi drove with one hand, the other resting loosely near the trigger of a concealed pistol on the dash. In the back, Jimin shifted restlessly. His wrists were still bruised, but the fire was returning to his eyes. The last dose of painkillers Yoongi had given him was wearing off, and along with the pain came something darker memory. "You sure this is the place?" Jimin finally asked, his voice brittle, worn raw from interrogation and guilt. Yoongi didn't look back. "Coordinates don't lie. People do." Jungkook said nothing. Jimin leaned forward. "Then tell me what you're thinking. Don't just sit there like a statue." Jungkook's voice, when it came, was low and cold. "I'm thinking about how Minwoo begged us not to go to rehearsal that night. How he called me 3 times. How I ignored every call because I thought he was being dramatic." Jimin looked away. "You weren't the only one who ignored him." The van fell back into silence, broken only by the thrum of tires on wet asphalt. They passed a checkpoint unmanned, its barrier lifted, rusted and forgotten, like a warning no longer needed or simply abandoned. As the GPS chimed once more, they turned onto a gravel path swallowed by fog. A bunker emerged from the trees, not visible to satellites, not marked on maps. Concrete, steel, silence. Jungkook stepped out first, gun drawn. He approached the keypad at the side of the sealed door and inserted the flash drive. The machine hummed, then beeped once loud and shrill before the slab of metal groaned open. Inside was cold, clinical darkness. But someone had been there recently. Lights flickered to life. The bunker was lined with servers, old and new. Stacks of hard drives, paper files, and in the center, a single monitor, still active. A blinking cursor awaited their arrival. Yoongi approached first. He typed a simple prompt. "Who created Phoenix?" The screen responded immediately. "Minwoo." Jungkook's stomach turned. "Why would he build something like this?" he whispered. Another message appeared, unprompted. "To protect the truth from the narrative." Jimin moved closer. He was trying to fight the system from the inside. Yoongi's eyes scanned a nearby board filled with red strings and photos. All of them were of them, the 7 members. Training days, music shows, hospital visits, their blood types, allergies, psychological reports. HYBE hadn't been managing them, they'd been cataloging them. Yoongi tapped a new command into the console. Access final file. Password required. Jungkook typed in Minwoo's birthday. Access denied. Jimin stepped forward, hesitated, then typed something else. The day Minwoo died. Access granted. The screen blacked out. Then, a video played. It showed a conference room. HYBE executives. Security officers. A younger Jimin. Pale, trembling, blood on his hands. An executive's voice rang out. He tried to expose the code replication. He accessed the AI core. We had no choice. Jimin's voice, broken and shaking. He wasn't threatening us. He was warning us. He said the AI was adapting on its own. We own the IP. We own the rights. If he had gone public, the entire system would collapse. All our narratives, all our digital assets. But it's learning, Jimin cried. It's rewriting who we are, our songs, our past, even the fans. The executive slammed a fist on the table. You are the product, not the creator. You signed that away the day you agreed to debut. The screen cut to static. The room was dead silent. Jungkook sat down slowly, as if the air itself had thickened around him. They used us to build something we didn't even understand. Yoongi walked to the server banks. They didn't just train idols. They trained identities. Everything we were. Every fight, every confession, every raw moment, they digitized it. Then fed it to Phoenix to optimize future content. Jimin sat on the floor, hands in his hair. Minwoo found out Phoenix was rewriting the past. Fan edits, news clips, old interviews, anything inconsistent with the perfect version of us. They were making us into gods, not humans. Gods they could control. A soft beep echoed. New message on the screen. Target deletion initiated. TRA. 0. Jungkook's eyes widened. They activated the purge. Everything in this bunker will be wiped in 3 hours. Yoongi stepped forward. No, it won't. Not if we transmit the core file before then. To who? Jimin asked bitterly. No one will publish this. No one will believe it. Not the media, Yoongi replied. The fans. Jungkook nodded slowly. Army will. He walked to the nearest panel and began linking the server to Yoongi's satellite uplink. Jimin helped, hands trembling. Yoongi loaded the core protocol, prepping the upload. The screen showed a countdown. 0:59分52秒. Suddenly, static on the intercom. Then a voice. Jeon Jungkook. Min Yoongi. Park Jimin. You are trespassing on classified property. Surrender immediately. Jimin looked up. They're here. Jungkook pulled the pistol from his belt and checked the chamber. They're not stopping this. Yoongi handed Jimin a second drive. This is a physical backup. If we don't make it, get it to Namjoon. He's in Mongolia. You think I can just walk across borders with this? Yoongi smirked grimly. You used to slip out of dorms at 2 a.m. to eat hot pot 3 cities away. You'll figure it out. A blast shook the door. Time fractured. Jungkook hit begin upload. The screen filled with code. The blast door began to cave in. A grenade bounced into the room. Yoongi screamed, diving forward. Flash. Noise. Darkness. When the light returned, Jungkook was on the floor, bleeding. Yoongi was gone. Jimin crawled toward the console, shielding the screen. He saw the upload bar at 76%. Please, 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 he whispered. Another explosion. Metal screamed as soldiers stormed in. One aimed at Jungkook. Jimin stood between them. No, he screamed. He's not the enemy. The soldier hesitated long enough. Upload complete. Transmission successful. The entire server room began to self-destruct. Alarms. Fire. Sirens. Jimin pulled Jungkook up. They ran. They didn't look back. Outside, the bunker collapsed behind them. Somewhere above them in orbit, the data had been beamed out, mirrored, fragmented, stored in fan servers and blockchain caches. Too many to erase. Phoenix had been released into the wild. Not a virus, a memory. 2 weeks later, a fan in Morocco posted a zip file titled, The Real BTS. Within hours, it was translated into 17 languages. Minwoo's name trended worldwide. His story became a legend. HYBE denied everything, but cracks had formed. Old interviews were re-examined. Dozens of former trainees began to speak. A lawsuit was filed. The myth of perfection had shattered. Jungkook walked the streets of Tokyo alone, sunglasses on, hood up. But someone always recognized him, not as a star, but as the boy who broke the silence. Jimin lived quietly in Okinawa, teaching dance at a children's center under a fake name. Yoongi disappeared after the explosion. Nobody was ever found. Some say he's still alive, watching, waiting. Taehyung resurfaced in a photo taken by a tourist in Bhutan. He looked thin, but free. And Phoenix? It was no longer a program. It was an idea. And ideas don't die. Not when people remember. The sun had not yet risen over the jagged mountains of Bhutan when the message came. A folded note slipped under the wooden door of the monastery guest house where Taehyung had been living under the name Sunho. He had just returned from tending the fire in the meditation hall when he saw it a pristine folded envelope with no name, only a small black emblem stamped in the corner. A phoenix surrounded by a circle of binary code. He sat on the floor, eyes closed, holding the envelope in his hand without opening it. He knew before reading that it would end whatever fragile peace he had carved for himself these past months. He opened it anyway. Inside was a sentence. The archive is awake. You're the last piece. Below it, a set of coordinates, Mongolia, and a name, Namjoon. Taehyung laughed under his breath, bitter and breathless. Of course it was Namjoon. Of course it had always been him. The only one who had truly tried to keep the fire from spreading. The only one who had told the others quietly, painfully, that the truth was a weapon too dangerous for anyone to wield until they understood how deep it ran. And now, the world knew. Not all of it, but enough to begin burning. Taehyung gathered his things, just a satchel, a scarf, and the necklace Minwoo had given him the night before he died. As he stepped outside into the biting wind, he felt it again, that strange pulse in the earth, as though something ancient was stirring beneath his feet. The Phoenix Protocol had not ended. It was only beginning. The data had splintered across the world, not leaked, liberated, uploaded in fragments, hidden in fan communities, buried in online game servers, embedded in AI image databases under false file names. The moment Jungkook hit transmit, the Phoenix archive scattered into 1 million pieces, and only one person had the decryption key, Namjoon. He had gone dark 3 years ago after an art sabbatical that was really a coded exit. His departure from the public eye had seemed graceful, even poetic, a final reflection on fame and identity. But behind the poetry was purpose. Namjoon had known. Minwoo had told him everything. In a remote mountain research facility built decades ago by Soviet defectors, Namjoon was waiting. He watched as Taehyung approached through the white snow, scarf fluttering behind him like a relic from a life he no longer lived. They said nothing at first, just stared. Brothers torn apart by systems older and colder than both of them. Finally, Namjoon spoke. "You came. I told myself I never would," Taehyung replied, eyes distant. "You said that when you left Busan, too." A bitter silence. Taehyung stepped forward. "Where's the key?" Namjoon didn't answer. He walked into the compound, and Taehyung followed. Inside were servers, silent machines, books, maps, vinyl records. A life paused. "I've decrypted 80%, Namjoon said. "But the final sequence, it needs your voice. Phoenix embedded biometric locks on all of us. Yours is the last." Taehyung stared at the screen. It was blinking, ready for final playback. "You understand what happens if we open this?" Namjoon asked. "Yes." "It's irreversible." Taehyung closed his eyes. "They already burned our names. Might as well let them see who struck the match." Namjoon stepped aside. Taehyungzat. The interface scanned his face, his iris, then prompted for audio confirmation. He whispered the phrase Minwoo had used to sign his last message. Not perfect, just human. The system unlocked. In Seoul, Jungkook received the alert while walking through a neon-lit alley in Hongdae. His phone buzzed a private server message. Only one person could have sent it. A file titled Playback 1, RMJ. He ducked into an abandoned cafe and opened his laptop. The file played. It was footage. Internal meetings. Contracts. A 3D neural network learning BTS's facial expressions, vocal tones, creative preferences. Then, a document signed by HYBE's legal team. This agreement confirms the acquisition of full performance and personality rights from artists Kim Namjoon, Kim Seokjin, Min Yoongi, Young Ho-sok, Park Jimin, Kim Taehyung, and Jeon Jungkook. Usage to include real-time AI simulation, synthetic voice licensing, behavioral mapping, and neural response analysis. The date? August 14, 2017. The year they released Love Yourself, Her. They hadn't just signed over their music, they had signed over themselves. Jungkook stood, shaking. Not from shock he'd already known, deep down, but from rage. They were never idols. They were assets. It wasn't long before the fans found it. Phoenix was public now, not through news outlets, but through whispers. Clips appeared on anonymous Twitter accounts. TikToks with 0 likes suddenly went viral for reasons no algorithm could explain. Encrypted files passed in Discord servers titled FanArt1 that, when opened, revealed boardroom meetings and internal memos. It wasn't a scandal. It was an awakening. People weren't angry because BTS had been used. They were angry because they had been lied to about what it meant to love something, what it meant to give your heart to a voice that wasn't always free. HYBE released a statement. These are malicious deepfakes designed to discredit the company and its artists. We ask fans to avoid participating in the spread of illegal materials. But it was too late. The material was out. And so was the truth. Jimin stood in a temple in Kyoto, watching children rehearse a traditional dance he had once studied as a boy. The laughter rang through the wooden beams. He smiled softly, faintly. He could never dance professionally again. Not after what they did to his spine in 2019, a procedure they denied ever happened. But he had this. A child approached, holding a phone. "Are you the man from the video?" she asked. He knelt. "No," he said, "but I used to be." Yoongi resurfaced in Manila, of all places. He uploaded one final track to SoundCloud before wiping everything. The track was 5 minutes and 23 seconds of silence. Then, a single line. "There's no such thing as forever in a system that profits from our death." Then the account was gone. People said he boarded a freighter headed to nowhere. People said he was dead. People said he became myth. The final playback spread globally. It wasn't a coordinated release. It was a feeling, a knowing. 1,000,000 young people looking at the screen and realizing they were part of something artificial, something curated, something stolen from the boys they once believed were invincible. And yet they didn't turn away. They mourned. Then they remembered. Not the perfection, the cracks, the tears on stage, the broken voices during encore, the hands reaching for each other in the dark. Because that's what Phoenix couldn't erase. The soul, the truth behind the illusion. In Mongolia, under a sky so vast it felt like a dream, Namjoon, Taehyung, and Jungkook stood together for the first time in years. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They just stood there, watching the wind stir the dust. "We did it," Taehyung said. "No," Namjoon replied. "We just stopped them from finishing." Jungkook looked up at the sky. "What happens now?" Namjoon smiled sadly. "Now we rebuild. Without scripts." HYBE fell. Not overnight, but fast. Stock prices crashed. Sponsors pulled out. Government inquiries launched. New trainees revolted. One by one, old staff began to speak out. Not just about BTS, but every group, every ghost, every story that was written, revised, resold. The illusion cracked. And beneath it, something real, something terrifying, something beautiful. Jungkook eventually released a book, not an album. It was titled Playback: The Years They Stole. It had no cover photo, just his name. Inside was the story. Raw, uneven, flawed, human. People read it in silence. In bedrooms, on rooftops, on subways. In the back, one page stood alone. It read, "We were never perfect. We were never gods. But we were real. And that's all we ever needed to be."